And we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to FreshandFit Podcast. We are here with the CEO of Noble Gold, Collin. Let's get into it, guys.
Let's go.
And we are back. What's up, guys? Welcome to the FreshandFit Podcast, man. We're here with a special guest. We're here with Collin, the CEO of Noble Gold.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Collin. It's always great to have you here.
Welcome back.
We're going to be talking about precious metals, guys. I think this is an asset class that doesn't get enough attention, especially with the younger people. You guys need to get into precious metals. I've talked about this for years.
Yeah.
How important it is, and it's kind of been a blessing to have been able to kind of work with Collin closely on the team, because now we have a POC that we can always kind of put you guys in contact with when it comes to precious metals, because this is an asset class that not too many people in the young world or younger people pay attention to. It's a big mistake. So, Collin, welcome to the show, man. Can you please introduce yourself to the people that might not be aware?
Yeah, Collin Plume, CEO of Noble Gold Investments, My Digital Money, and a few other companies, kind of serial entrepreneur. And but today we're going to get into money, what's real money, what's fake money, and kind of the exciting things that have happened since the election, and talk about all things around making money and making sure you put it in the right places.
Collin, you mentioned the election. People are seeing now that Bitcoin's going up, money's going up as well because Trump has won. What do you think the reason is behind people's, I want to say, economic look now of it going up?
Well, I mean, Trump, part of his platform was to get younger male voters. Mm-hmm. And so he had this very pro-crypto policy. He even hinted that potentially he's going to put some crypto in the Federal Reserve. Yeah. And so he's sort of opening up. He's also obviously an entrepreneur, and he has more sort of forward-thinking ideas. So the crowd after the election, and you have this with a volatile crypto market. There was a massive surge into the crypto market, which obviously has pushed the price up a lot of these cryptos. We've seen this before. We've seen it in crypto where you go through these rides, and where it'll end, nobody knows. But I think ultimately people believe that the crypto market with Trump has a little bit more room, a little less restrictive. Time will tell, though, because I do think that them holding crypto in the reserve, like they hold gold, gold, the U.S. government has gold. It's actually the only asset they have that doesn't have debt behind it. Gold is a stable asset. It's traded, it's bartered with. It makes sense to hold gold. We'll see if crypto or Bitcoin is one of those things. Crypto still has a long way to prove what the value is of it. Typically currencies aren't made to go up this much. Yeah. So that's why when everyone's like, oh, it's going to be a currency, currencies aren't typically made to go up in this kind of direction. Currencies are supposed to hold and stay a consistent value. So we're trading and bartering as a mean of exchange. But yeah, there's been a euphoria, and obviously, all the cryptos have jumped up pretty significantly here.
Yeah, that's true.
So one thing I want to, because it's been a while since we spoke to you, and there's been a lot of things that have transpired, whether it's Trump winning the election. There was a BRICS summit not too long ago, a very big BRICS summit within the last 3 weeks or so. So a lot of new developments. And I think it's also very important, because I was doing research a couple of weeks back, and I realized that Russia, obviously we all know that the conflict with Ukraine, they've been heavily sanctioned, 15,000 plus sanctions in Russia. They've been pretty much blackballed, taken off SWIFT, etc. But their economy has gone up in value. The ruble has went up, and one of the key reasons why they've been able to keep their economy stable and still be able to progress despite the massive amount of crippling sanctions is because Putin is holding so much gold.
Yep.
Can you tell us about that as far as like holding gold? And then the other thing I was going to say, because you kind of touched on it, and the other thing I was going to ask you of the two-part question was there's some talk about Trump ending the Fed and going back to a gold reserve, a gold-backed currency.
Right.
So that two-part question, I'll let you take it.
Yeah. So the first thing is, so the BRICS met, BRIC nations met October 22nd, 23rd in Russia, and they released, they had a credit card of a BRICS Pay, looks like a credit card, because they're trying to create this independent currency. The big topic at that summit was de-dollarization. They want to move away from the dollar, and the BRICS is growing. That conglomerate has really grown. You have Saudi Arabia, you have the UAE joining. And actually, there was something really interesting that happened before that. So the UAE was coming up with a alternative CBDC. They started in 2019. You can look it up. It's called the M1 agreement. And they were building this CBDC, and they got clearance in mid-June. And you can look up all the reports about it, basically saying that they're ready to release the CBDC. And then once BRICS met, BRICS is sort of talking about creating a real currency. The UAE and Saudi Arabia is joining BRICS, has already joined BRICS. So they basically halted that CBDC that they were trying to build for the last 5 years. And even though it's got approval, the white paper is ready to go, they stopped it altogether. And people believe they're going to use that technology to go ahead and convert that over to BRICS, because it's already proven, it's already ready to go, because it takes a while to release one of these currencies that actually is going to work. And they've done proof of stake. It actually works. They can move money with this CBDC. So the BRICS are pushing heavily to create their own currency. And obviously Russia has a lot of incentive to do that because, as you mentioned, they are blackballed. They've been buying gold this year every month, the most amount out of any country in the whole world. They want to continue to buy it.
Are they number one or number two in gold reserve? If I'm not mistaken, it was either them or China, right? That was the most.
China and Russia are between 4 and 5 on the list, but they've went from, when I started in the business, Russia was like 12th and China was like 9th. So they've just been continuously buying and buying. Also with China, you never really know what they know or what they own. Because they own so many mines all over the world. There actually was a big article and story that came out about in Colombia. There's a big Colombian mine that has been they're coming in and they're stealing gold. They're having these like big gangs come into Colombia and steal gold. And that mine is actually owned by China. And they actually stole 3.2 tons of gold. This happened about 30 days ago.
Wow.
So there's, it's hard to know exactly how much China owns and how much Russia owns. They don't fully disclose what they have. But yeah, I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, China and Russia will have more gold in their reserves than the U.S. They'll continue to buy and sock it away because they want to be the dominant. They know that whoever holds the most gold will be the dominant country in the world. And to go over what you're saying about Trump, yes, he has talked about ending the Fed, which is, Ron Paul wrote a book called End the Fed. He's been one of the biggest ones pushing for ending the Fed. It's a corrupt organization. It's basically, people think it's a government organization. It's not. It's a private organization that's run by the banks. And they're the ones that control how our money is given out. And they're in control. Even Jerome Powell, when you looked at Jerome Powell, they were talking about, can Trump remove Jerome Powell? And he can't, because Congress was the one that votes him in, and Trump has no power. He can't do anything unless he does something that's never been done before. He can't determine who the Fed is. So yeah, the Fed is an organization you have to watch. They do control how our money is flowed, and they're losing a lot of their power. And that, look, they tried to lower rates. They tried to lower rates 60 days ago, so everyone thought mortgages were going to come down. And I don't know if you've been watching this, but mortgage rates actually went up.
Yeah, I literally just was looking at rates yesterday because I'm in the process of looking at some homes. So yeah, you're right. They haven't went down. Right now, it's around 6-7%. If you're trying to get it as an investor, we're going into the 8s and 9s. So it hasn't went down that
and
much.
Everybody thought when the Fed pushed rate, they've lowered rates 75 basis points over the last 90 days. So you would think, rates would be coming down, but they haven't. And that's because actually rates are tied to the 10-year. They're tied to the 10-year note, and the 10-year note has actually gone up. And so a lot of ways that the Fed is able to manipulate the economy, they're losing the power to do it. And so that's unfortunately what Trump is going to inherit is this economy where interest rates are super high. They're much too high to have a normal, for in this day and age, to have a normal economy for what we live off cheap debt. We need cheap debt. I mean, you're looking at these rates going, do I buy this property? Right. I'm sure it's like factoring into your mind. Like, I know they always say like, buy the house and marry the rate, or maybe it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's date the rate, marry the house.
Date the rate. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But you're also factoring into your analysis like, shit, this is going to be a 9% note on an investor property, and what if rates don't come down? Can I have an ROI on my return if rates don't come down? And that this is happening across the board, across the country, and that's why the real estate market has really been decimated in so many places, because these rates are just much higher than what we're used to.
And they're sticking to there. It's one thing if the rates balloon up to 9, 10, 11, 12%, because then all right, this isn't maintainable. It's going to come down at some point. But if you buy it at this point, because a lot of people in the real estate world, and this, they kind of live off of cash out refinances. So if the rates don't come down, right, and they just kind of stick at this level, you can't really cash out refinance like that and actually make some money. So
also rent is down too as well, all across the board. Rent is down.
Rent is down. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they definitely overbuilt in a lot of areas, and the big bubble. And from someone that I think I mentioned last time I was on your show, I was in commercial real estate for many years, sold apartment buildings and shopping centers. I own a tremendous amount of commercial real estate, and I know that a lot of people are living on that cash out refinance, or they're just even going to have to refinance next year, and they're not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to refinance a lot of these buildings, unfortunately, because if rents are down, and they did their projections, rents are down and interest rates are double where they originally bought the property, that deal does not pencil out.
Yeah.
So you're going to have this big amount of commercial. There's a lot of commercial properties next year that are going to come due, and no one's going to be able to, the banks aren't going to be able to underwrite it, and there's going to be a lot of problems. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to come in and swoop up a lot of properties on the cheap, which is great for them. But overall, as an economy, I think as much as they're saying like the equity markets are up and all this is up, there's a lot of underlying bubbling debt that is going to make it really difficult for people to have like a really strong retirement. And there's a lot of problems because a lot of people live off this extra property. They're living off this extra income. They're in the real estate game. This is how they feed their families. And I think that market's going to be really tough for a long time. I think the only saving grace in real estate is just the cost of labor, and the cost of good, how to build a home is going to continue to go up, which should increase the price. But if you just look at debt and demand across the board, I think those things are coming down. And there's just a lot of debt that's not going to be refinanced. So there's going to be a lot of, as much as, even if the equity market stays up for some time, there's going to be a lot of problems out there underlying, just job wise. I talked to a lot of employers. They're not feeling very confident to hire people. So I don't think the economy is as great as what everybody says it is. And this is what Trump, ran his campaign on, but he's going to have to come in and try to do the best he can. But like, nobody can fix these problems overnight. I mean, these are fundamental issues that we have in our economy.
Yeah. Well said. And I don't think, I don't think tariffs, as much as people, and I'm a Trump supporter, but I don't think tariffs is going to, increase tariffs is going to kind of fix the issues that we have here.
Well, it makes it more expensive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, tariffs initially will make it more expensive. And as much as it does circulate the income, because you're basically saying, we're gonna level the playing field with cheap labor overseas and make our products kind of the same price. But that means that our products are going to be more expensive because, we're building, minimum wage across the country is $15 an hour, as opposed to where our t-shirts are made, where they're making, 50 cents an hour. So everything is just going to go up, right? The cost of goods is going to go up. So initially inflation will go up. And that's why I think gold and silver still are in the bull run. I think, we had this 30% increase. Gold was up 30% this year at its peak, 32%. Then we had the pullback right after the election. So basically gold hit 27.65. Right after the election, you had multiple days of sell-offs because people were figuring things out. They were going into riskier investments, maybe they're
Crypto,
going
yeah.
to Bitcoin. But now at 2,600, and this is what gold does, is it's like a stair step. This is what continuously gold has done. You can look at the charts. It goes up and then it levels off, and it goes up and it levels off. And I think that's where it's testing its floor, whether it's 2,600, maybe 2,500. But usually what you'll see happen is a day like today, which is a great example. It dipped below 2,600, and then you saw a massive amount of buying, and gold was up today almost 2%, silver was up 3%. And what that's saying to the market is that that's sort of the floor, because otherwise it would have just continued to go down, right? People would have just continued to sell off.
Yeah.
And gold is unique in that too, because when you look at gold as jewelry, people sometimes need money and they go in and they sell it. But you see in the market, there's a price that people will hold it because they believe it's cheap. And I think we're kind of in that territory now. Where like if gold hits 2,900 again, you'll probably have some people sell off. But then if it pulls back to 2,700, they may hold off. There's not as much gold, and then the price just continues to go up. So that's why if you look at the charts, you continuously see that stair step where it creates a floor, maybe drops, and then it goes up again and it goes up. And that's, since I've been in the business for the last 16 years, that's sort of the trajectory of gold. So young people today love these quick, get rich quick sort of things that are happening. But also you do have to hedge your bet with some of the safe stuff like gold and silver, just to sock it away, to not think about it. Because it's nice to have some things in your portfolio that don't have debt, that are owned. These items you own by yourself. You got it in a safe, or we'll store it for you. Or you got it in your IRA or an old 401k, and it's just kind of sleepy money, sleepy investment money. If you need it later, you got it. But it's nice to have a few things that you don't really have to worry about. You don't have to watch like some of your other investments.
Right.
Yeah. I think if anything, the fact that, some people might get, pissed off like, oh, well, why would I invest in gold? It didn't go up in it, when Trump took office. That's actually a good thing. If anything, I think that's a testament to its stability, regardless of what's going on, who comes into office, foreign wars, etc., right? Which heavily dictate other markets. When it comes to gold and silver, they've just been rock solid. Like, they don't have a rock bottom like crypto. I remember people were losing their minds because Bitcoin was under 30,000, Ethereum was, under 2K. People were jumping off of balconies here in Miami, but gold and silver has always stayed consistent regardless of what's going on. Good administration, bad administration, foreign wars or not, it's always been able to stay stable.
Yeah, and I think you guys know this because you guys open businesses and you guys know how hard it is. I think the thing that happens a lot today is there's this cool thing about being entrepreneurs, and they think it's so easy, and like you're going to come in and you're going to make, there's always this thing, you're going to make 20%. If you start a business, you're going to make 20 or 30% on your investment or something like that.
Yeah.
And listen, you can, right? I mean, you guys have more than that, but like there's also just the time that it could take. And I think that people don't realize that like certain things take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And even trading Bitcoin or watching those things, there's a lot of these things that take owning real estate. It takes time managing the real estate. It takes you away from the other things. And that's why I'm seeing a lot of people that are younger entrepreneurs diving into gold, and they're storing it with us. And the reason they're doing it is because they know how hard it was to make the money in the business. They were just grinding. They were just doing everything. They working as hard as they can. And then they're like, do I want to get into something else that's risky too? Or do I get into something that I kind of know? And yeah, maybe if I need an opportunity or if I need cash later, I can just get it. And that's the nice thing about gold and silver. And that's the nice thing about me as an owner is I was telling someone recently that we had a client who made a $900,000 profit over the last 3 years in precious metals that they bought from us. Now, they bought a lot. This isn't like a guy that bought $20,000. This is a massive purchase, but they made in profit $900,000, which for me was just an incredible joy to see this person. And they needed the money to do whatever they needed to do money for. But like the idea was that like they bought something safe. Over just a few years, they were able to just kind of hold it. There's no work. And basically there was no fee after they, bought the metals from us. They just stored it. And then they, called us up, say, Collin, we did great. Like, we need the money for whatever they're going to do the money. And I don't ask. And they made a $900,000 profit on their, gold and silver investment. And, they were mentioning they're probably going to, they had mostly gold and they would probably come back in and buy silver later. But at the end of the day, they just wanted to get that profit. Sometimes people just want to see that you actually made a profit, and they did. So that was just a recent story of a client that really was able to turn a pretty good amount of money into a whole lot of money, especially in profit.
That's a big profit, bro. Wow.
Yeah.
And the good thing with gold is too as well, you can always travel and sell it there too, no matter where you go.
Correct.
Let me ask you this, Collin. Let's say I'm the average person in America. I 9-to-5 job. I'm working my ass off. I want to get into investments. What should I buy, and how much should I buy of gold and silver, precious metals?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal is that you want to have enough in gold and silver as your like real security blanket, your real insurance. And I think that and I don't know, everyone's at a different age and income, but ultimately I think that if I was like 20, 30, 40 years old and I was saving for the future, I would say that you want to have at least 10% of what you're going to have at 65 in gold and silver. And the reason is this, it's really simple, is that when the economy changes, you want to have an asset that's liquid and that the value and that there's no debt behind it. So let's say your retirement's going to be $2 million, then I would say you should have 200,000 at 65 in gold and silver, because let's just say we went through what we went through in 2022 and the stock market just tanks, right? You're 65, you might need money. You're going to want to sell that stock? Probably not. Are you going to want to sell the real estate? I mean, the people that you guys are looking at those deals from, like, they're taking a bath, I'm assuming. Like, they're probably losing a lot of money. They don't want to sell, but they probably need the money, right? They probably need it. So I think you want to have at least, and I'm not a financial advisor, so, this is just my personal opinion, but I think you want to have at least 10% at the end in precious metals as a hedge, so that if you have to liquidate because you need the money to live on, or you got to go to the doctor, you got to fix the roof, you're sort of protected. And so it's like a big pie. You just have that one sliver of pie in precious metals. And listen, there's people that work for me that have more, that have 50, 60%. I have more than the 10%. So but I'm in the business. So I know this stuff and I feel comfortable. But I think once people research, when you really look at gold and silver, you start looking at the charts, you look at our gold guides. I have a silver book coming out. If you really start to look at it, the downside in precious metals, and the precious metals that we say, in my opinion, is much lower than a lot of the other assets out there, because you need these things in industry, right? You need these. These aren't things that are optional. And I think that's the thing that's important to think about, is like some stocks, like the company made, like NVIDIA, like eventually someone's going to figure out a way to make those chips at a cheaper price than NVIDIA. And they're going to come in the market and take a lot of market share from them. And those chips are necessary and we need those, but that company is not necessary, right? These things are necessary. These things you can't replace. You can't live without them. We have to have them in the world. All of the world runs on different precious metals, depending on what it is. So it's important, these things that have some necessities in your portfolio that aren't going away.
Right.
And so that's why I think regardless of the markets, as you mentioned with Trump, it went down a little bit, but regardless of the market, these things are going to be important for the future. And I think that's really important for your portfolio, is to have a few things that are kind of no-brainers that really make sense, whatever the market is, whatever, up or down, or whatever it is, interest rates. You got to have a few things in there that kind of stand the test of time.
So the metric here seems to be about 10% of your net worth you're holding in precious metals, which is great. Now, of that 10% that you're holding, what percentage would you say you want to be silver versus gold versus potentially even other precious metals?
I would say right now you want to probably be 60, 70% silver, because silver is just so undervalued.
Yeah.
If you're closer to retirement, maybe you go heavier gold because it's just less volatile. But silver sitting at 31 and some change, all-time high is 50. I think that it's going to hit 60 in the next 2 to 3 years. I think there's just a lot of like
explosive. And we're talking per ounce here, right?
Yeah, per ounce.
Yeah.
Yeah, per ounce.
$60 per ounce. Yep.
Yeah, so I think it's going to hit 60. That's what my kind of projections are at, and that's like
That'd be
short.
crazy.
That's 3-4 years. Like that's pretty short term
It
in
is,
terms of investment.
especially with precious metals.
Yeah.
Pressure, yeah. I mean, I think it's going to have some velocity there. So I would go heavier silver, but gold's always a great bet, and you can't go wrong with gold because it is the asset that central banks continue to buy. And so if you're just like, I'm not a risky guy, I think gold's a great place to be, but I wouldn't sleep on silver. Platinum would be another one I consider because it's more, it's
I was
very
going to
hard
ask
to
you that
mine
next.
it.
Like which, because like obviously we talk a lot about gold and silver, but what about these other metals, whether it be platinum, copper?
Platinum, I would
other
say
ones?
maybe 3 or 4% platinum. Palladium, I think it's always gotten too expensive, and I don't know if it's going to have. It could, I haven't studied it as much as the other metals. It could go back up to 3,000-4,000, but I really like where silver's sitting. That's the one I'd really kind of focus on, and then I think people are obviously taking some of their money and doing crypto too. So I think having some riskier money there, but also like people should keep in mind is that euphoria that you're feeling because you have it in crypto, it can easily get wiped away by a lot of regulation or if they turn out a lot of the uses aren't going to work. There's a lot of things. As much as I like crypto, there's a lot of things working against it.
Yeah.
The banks don't like it. Most governments are concerned about it because they want to control your money, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. So I think you have to hedge your bet there. And I remember the crypto winter, and like people forget how bad it was. I mean, there was people that lost their homes. There was people that just were, were millionaires to nothing overnight.
Oh yeah.
So
and
that's never going to happen here.
Especially
right? You're
here in
never going to
Miami.
go. Gold's never going to zero. So that's the whole thing. Is like you got to understand your risk tolerance and what's going to make you comfortable. And some people, the anxiety of having something so risky is just not good for them. So I think it's good to have stable things so you can just focus. Entrepreneurs like you guys or people that are working hard and income, people that are making money. You don't want so much going into something that's going to stress you out and take you away from the thing that you do really well. Because ultimately, if you have that whole pie and you're segmenting the right way, at the end, you're going to have enough. But if you're too heavy on risk, you have a bad year, it could screw up your whole mental ability to really focus. And studies have shown this. Studies have shown that people that are like late 40s and 50s, if they're so heavy in the stock market and the stock market tanks, that it affects their ability to work, it affects their marriage, it affects them, all kinds of things that can happen. So you do want to be diversified, which is the thing that I always really kind of focus on, is having, different things out there. And it's, you guys have had Charlie Kirk on. I talked to him a lot about this on his show, is like, he's a big believer in that diversification too, is like just having different investments. And, he's really focused on his business and growing, and he's a big part of the election, but he doesn't want to have things out there that are going to distract him from the things that he knows, and gold and silver are just kind of safe and easy. And it makes a lot of sense.
We had him scheduled, unfortunately, but like he had a Trump rally there to go to like last minute. He was.
Oh,
living in
you guys have
Florida.
never had him? I thought I saw him on your show.
So we had him scheduled.
Well, we did a reaction for Jubilee. Remember, we did a reaction.
Yeah, I reacted to that.
Yeah.
But I literally was talking to his people, and we were gonna have him on, and then Trump did some kind of I forget what it was, something here in Florida.
Rally?
Or some kind of like last minute rally, and they had to go because I had it all set up with his people. But no, we're definitely gonna get him on.
Amazing guy.
But
yeah, he's an amazing guy. You'll like him too. He can talk. He can go in any different way you want too, which is great. Yeah, he's he was instrumental in the election. I've seen his team and how he builds it, and he's got that college group that goes on campuses. He's a force to be reckoned with, I'm sure. And I've said it many times, but I think he could potentially be president one day if he wanted to. I don't know if he wants to, but I think he could be if he wanted to.
I think he's able to sway the youth in a good direction as well. So just answer questions. But just to make this more concrete for the audience. So you mentioned before gold and silver, the predominant ones you want to get, precious metals, right? My thing is, let's say it's all equal. Let's say Bitcoin isn't volatile. Let's say gold is the Bitcoin and Ethereum's the silver. That's what I would put it as for people to understand more terms of like.
Like it's like the reserve currencies of this world.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, that's what I would say just for the audience.
Yeah, would it be fair to say that gold and silver are essentially the Bitcoin and Ethereum and or the U.S. dollar when it comes to like reserve status and baseline of that asset class?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that analogy a lot. I think Bitcoin and gold because there's a limited supply of Bitcoin, right? There'll be 21 million ever, maybe if it stays to that. Ethereum, I hear that too because it's the one that all the other platforms are built on. But it always comes down to me is like limited supply, and gold and silver have a limited supply, and those things. Even though they say Bitcoin has, nobody knows. They could change it later. There's no way to prove that it's going to be exactly this way. So I think ultimately you have to think about big picture is that you're dealing with digits and those are important and they're using a lot, but like these are actually things that have a limited supply and they have to be mined and they're used in industry. And one thing about silver that's really fascinating is that where the price is today, it really allows a rocket ship type of growth. And I'll explain why is that silver is used in so many things, but I'll give you one example, like refrigerators. They typically use about 2 ounces of silver in a refrigerator. Now, if that was 2 ounces of gold in a refrigerator, every time a refrigerator would go somewhere, if it was no longer being used, someone would go in there and pull those 2 ounces, right? Because 2 ounces would be worth like $5,000, $5,200. But 2 ounces of silver is only worth $64. So that silver in that refrigerator and many appliances never gets pulled out. So there's a lot of silver that doesn't get recycled. A lot of the gold gets recycled because of the value. But when a metal is so affordable, it doesn't really get recycled as much. So if you think about it exponentially across the whole world, all these items that have silver in it that are never going to be recycled, it pulls a lot of the ounces of silver out of the supply chain. And so if you just exponentially kind of grow that, you add solar panels, electric vehicles, as much as like a lot of the world, they got their thing about electric vehicles and they don't like them, this and that. At the end of the day, they're not going anywhere and they're going to continue to do silver there. And solar panels are going to continue to use silver. So as much as a lot of people are going against that, they want gas cars, these things are going to be used. This green energy, most of the world has adopted it. We're going in this direction, and there's a lot of silver used in a lot of this industry. So I think the difference with precious metals and those two cryptocurrencies is that it's just there's actually real use in today's world. Whereas I think that, with cryptos, it still needs to prove that it's going to stay around forever, and it's not just going to go up based on just frothy excitement in the markets. Like it needs some fundamentals in place. And I know there's ETFs and I know there's all those things, but ultimately they're just different. They're just fractionalizing ways to sell the same thing, right? That's what an ETF is. It's not really proving that it's an actual currency. So my opinion, safety, these are the ones, but I get it. People like crypto, they're seeing the growth. There's a lot of money being made. But I'm a little bit of an old school guy, and I believe in things that I'm buying having actual use, and these things actually have use.
Okay, well said. So I guess we had an article to look at as well, Collin, right? About the people voting, and then of course Trump. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's. I think we go into let's just wrap with the Trump. The Trump economy and talking about inflation.
Okay, Bill, it's the last one in takeover. The last article? Yeah, because
Well, while we wait for Bill to pull that up, I got a question. How likely do you think it is that, because you mentioned Ron Paul, and obviously he's kind of involved in this administration. Has he been appointed in an official position yet, by the way, with Ron Paul?
I don't think so. I haven't seen him. He's been out of politics for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Maybe his son, Rand, could be someone that could come back into the fold. I mean, he hasn't been really involved in politics for a long time. Mm-hmm. Ron Paul's, I have to guess he's probably late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
But he's, if you read his books, everything that he said has been coming true.
Yeah.
When he's gone up in front of Congress and said, this is real money, holding up a silver coin, and what you guys are doing is illegal, and you guys have broken the Constitution. I mean, all the things that he was saying in the 80s and 90s is all coming true today.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fascinating thing about it, is that everything comes back full circle. I mean, if you look at the Constitution didn't have anything about fiat money. It was talking about gold and silver. It's talking, we have a currency, but it's got to be backed by something. I mean, that's the fundamental idea, is that a currency should be backed on something to limit the government's ability to do what they've been doing, which is to spend out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
the amount of debt that's created. I mean, it's. I think we create $1 trillion in debt every 100 days as a government. So these things the numbers have just morphed out of control. And the interesting thing about it, and this is my favorite statistic about it all, is that up before 2001, we were, I think, less than $2 trillion in debt as a country. From 2001 to now, we're what, 35 trillion? And think about what we did before 2001. Multiple world wars, the Cold War, all the nuclear weapons we built. I mean, the amount of stuff, Vietnam, you name it, the amount of wars, a Korean War, and we're less than 2 trillion in debt before that. And then from 2021 to now, we add $33 trillion in debt.
the war on terror was expensive, huh?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. The military complex is taking control of our government. And so we'll see. Hopefully things will calm down. I think Trump, the beauty behind him being in office is that he doesn't have to get reelected, right? And so he can do what he wants. And so hopefully can fix a lot of it. But 35 trillion in debt is a massive debt. I mean, for anyone that's been, $50,000 in credit card debt, we're like, let's just say 10 times that as an individual. Let's say you're $500,000 in credit card debt at 30% interest. That's what the government is dealing with today, right? That's in essence, as an individual, if you just kind of think about that, that's what we're dealing with. And that's going to be a lot even for a new president. So I think, listen, the tariff idea seems good, but it's going to increase inflation.
Yep.
And that's what Trump's inheriting. He's inheriting an overbloated government. He's inheriting a government that is just spending to the point that we can't even afford anything. And now and all these problems. He's got the real estate market to deal with. So it's not going to be easy for him to turn things around.
Yeah.
And the world is really adapting much faster than we are. The world is really moving in a much positive direction. China is moving in a much better direction. Our GDP as the U.S. was at 29%, 30% about 5-6 years ago. Now we're at 27%. They think we're going to hit 26%. So we're declining down. BRIC nations are growing. All of those countries are growing in a more positive direction. And I think a lot of it is that we've just taken on too much of the world with the military industrial complex. We've just taken on too much, and we need to rein it back in to get things under control. But average Americans are going to pay for this stuff. I mean, it's not the rich. It's the average people that are going to pay for all this stuff that we've put together, all this debt that we've created, because they just can't keep up. They can't keep up with it. So it's going to be rocky. As much as a lot of people are excited about what's going to happen here, I think he's going to have a lot of problems, dealing with the government. Still going to have a lot of problems with the Democrats. Who knows if all these cases are going to go away? I think a lot of them are still going to go. They might try to indict him. I mean, I know they say you can't because he's the president, but there's a lot of things that can happen. So I think
the
it's
Fed
going
ones
to
are
be rocky.
gone, but the state ones might still persist. But let me ask you this real quick, Collin. Because with the whole Ron Paul thing, I was gonna follow up with. Do you think it's likely that we're going to get off the Fed? Because if we actually did get off the Fed and went back to
Gold standard?
went back to a gold standard and had our money backed by gold, I think gold would fucking skyrocket. How likely do you think that is that we can go back? I know Trump's been
I think we
flirting with the
could
idea.
definitely go to at least partially backed by gold. I don't think we can. We don't have enough gold right now. Well, first of all, we don't even know how much gold we have at Fort Knox and New York. So they haven't done a real audit in a long time. They did an audit in New York about 5 years ago, but they haven't done an audit in Fort Knox. So we're just basing the numbers based on what we had before. And some people believe we did a sell-off. I mean, it's hard to tell. But if we went off the Fed and we backed our currency again by gold and tried to create a market where our currency actually had value, a lot of things would happen. First of all, we would go from inflation to deflation. So the cost of goods would go down. And I know a lot of people think that would be negative, but I think a lot of people would be like really happy if the cost of goods from health insurance to food to electricity wasn't going up double digits every year. Gold would skyrocket. Absolutely. I mean, I've seen studies that say gold would be $20,000, $30,000 an ounce. Silver would probably be at $1,000.
Wow.
These metals would really move quickly. Because, we would basically showing that our currency is backed buy gold. And so gold would become a very enticing asset to own. It would strengthen the, because the government's tried to just push gold away. They don't even want to talk about it. Trump's been like the first president that's really sort of talking about debt and our currency, and he's talking about gold. He's talking about putting Bitcoin in reserve. I mean, he's the first one that has this kind of idea. And I think that it would really strengthen our currency. It would make things more affordable. And I think it would level the playing field for people. And I think that would be the greatest thing about it. And it would also put some onus on the government to create a budget that, and they, because every 3 months they have to raise the budget now. They'd have to literally have a budget if they put us back and they got rid of the Fed.
Yeah.
And that would be the best thing for our country. It'd be just like what you and I have to do. I mean, you don't just get credit cards and keep spending. I mean, that's what the government's doing. So I think that today's right now, the thing that I would tell people is be diversified, have different assets, be cautious, but have some things that don't have debt behind them. I know there's a lot of money made on debt in certain assets, but ultimately having a few things that are without debt in your portfolio long term, I think are going to make a lot of sense and also give investors a lot of confidence. And I think you want to, when you're young and you're growing, you want to have a nice runway, and you don't want to get distracted with having too many volatile investments in your portfolio, and you want to take too many risks. Because at the end of the day, someone that's going to make a lot of money and really push, you're going to have to take some chances. And there's certain things that you just don't want to take chances on. And so that's why I think gold and silver are going to be a great investment for a long time. And that's why my silver book, which by the time I see you guys in a few weeks, my silver book will be in hand. You guys will have a copy of it.
Nice.
And I'll get that out to you. It's called Silver is the New Oil. And I make the argument that silver is going to eventually replace oil as this, new economy is here and make a lot of changes. And so I go through the charts and kind of really explain it in detail. Because sometimes on these interviews, I just can't get into too many details, but I can really dive in. And so anyone that requests information, you'll get access to the book. It'll be out on Amazon first week of December. But I really dive into the silver story and why I believe it's really got potential. And I think silver is going to be like what oil was, 100 years ago with the Gettys and, all these people that made all this money. I think silver has that potential to go up that amount because of just all the industrial uses today and where things are going with technology. So I think the uses are just limitless with silver, and I think it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk obviously is very influential in this administration. There's been a push to get away with oil and not being so dependent on it, going into electric cars. You just mentioned something before about there's 2 ounces of silver in every refrigerator. Like, that's mind-blowing. I did not know that. And that's just kind of a microcosm of potentially something bigger where imagine how many other, household appliances also have silver or things that we use every day that we don't even know.
Solar panels.
That use quite a bit of silver. So, so even though some people might, be listening to this and saying, "Oh, that's far-fetched," there's no way that silver will ever surpass oil. I mean, after finding out a fun fact, like every refrigerator has 2 ounces of silver, I could only imagine, what it's used in and other things.
Well, that's a good point.
So,
Elon Musk is
I'd like to hear that though. That's very intriguing. I'd like to actually sit down and when you come back here, I'd like to actually talk about that and kind of pick your brain about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, we'll dive in deep into silver, the silver story, and just talk about all the shortages of silver and all the new uses. And if you think about it, what commodity could you buy today that's cheaper than it was in the 1980s? I mean, 1980 silver hit $50 an ounce. It's sitting at $31. There's no other commodity that's in high demand that's cheaper than it was in 1980. It's only silver.
What's your current
good point
silver? I guess how much you've bought so far, if you don't mind sharing.
Me personally?
Yeah, personally, yeah.
Yeah, you go shit.
It's a lot.
Come on, Fresh. Why would you ask that?
He's like, man, I don't want to get
actually, you know what I buy is exactly
Bro,
what I have is kilos. I buy silver kilos or 100-ounce silver bars. This is the most cost-effective way. I'll put it this way that it's definitely in the 7 figures. But it's my wife loves silver and I buy consistently. I buy every quarter.
Okay.
And so you're stacking. I've been stacking
over 16 years, which is that's gonna add up.
Stacking over time, and I bought silver at, I bought it at, 14. I bought it at $10. I bought it at $18. I bought it at 20. So it's like it's really kind of stacked up over time, and I mean I feel great about it. I'm not a seller. I think, when I give this silver and gold to my kids, do I see silver sitting at $200-300 an ounce? Yeah, I think it's totally possible. I think gold sitting at, $8,000 to $10,000 an ounce, and my kids are, inheriting these things from me. But yeah, I've never felt bad about any of the purchases that I've done in precious metals. Even when, 2011 gold went up quick and then pulled back, I just felt like it's just when you buy things at, the right time and you hold them for a long time, you're going to see the value. And I feel like gold and silver have that. There's still a lot of room for growth. There's still a lot of story there. And like, a lot of your audience, like a lot of them don't even know about it. Like young people are still kind of learning about it because they've been pulled in all the wrong directions. So many people have been buying the wrong assets. They're buying, Nike shoes, and they're buying watches, and they're buying all this stuff that it's only great if there's a buyer on the other side. Whereas like with this, you mentioned that like you can take this anywhere in the world. If I go to Dubai right now, I have plenty of buyers there. If I go to Europe, I got plenty of buyers there. Anywhere in the world, someone's buying this at a great market price. And that cannot be said about some of these other quick investments that are out there. You just can't get the money. Whereas this, everybody knows it. Everyone can weigh it, authenticate it, and I can liquidate it anywhere. And if I have to flee the country, I can just, listen, you can put $1 million of gold in a shoebox and be gone, right? So it's something that has the liquidity that I think a lot of people want. And like, people that are nervous about things happening in this country, they don't feel safe. Like gold and silver is the asset. If you're going to flee, like gold and silver is the assets you're going to want to flee with. It makes the most sense. You're not going to want to flee with bank accounts. I mean, look what's happened in all these places all over the world where they've frozen bank accounts.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing for the government to get into. This, they can't. It's yours. It's in your hands. So you take it anywhere you want. And I think people really like that. They really like the liquid wealth in their hands. It gives them a lot of comfort.
Tangible.
And I think with the government and everything happening, there's so much intrusion. It's nice to have a little bit under the table and you're safe. That's yours, that you don't have to, worry about. And it's your business. That's the beauty behind it. We keep everybody's information private. We're protective. When we ship it, it's non-discreet. Nobody knows. So we're really in the privacy business, and it keeps our clients, really excited about what they're doing, and they can just sock it away. And then, in the end, when they need it, we're there to buy it back.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, man. I'm intrigued about the silver aspect because I've not heard anyone talk about it. Even Robert Kiyosaki talks about gold, but never really silver. So that's a new one. Okay, we got the article here, Collin. Which part do you want to go through real quick? Which part do you want to go through?
What do we got left?
This is the Trump one?
The Trump. I think we hit that. Pretty good.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
I got Malden Economics. Is that what it? Malden
Malden Economics.
Malden.
Oh, yeah. Is that? I think we hit it. How long we been going for?
48 minutes.
48 minutes.
Okay. I think let's ask one more wrap, and I think in my opinion, we're good.
Okay. I mean, that was really my main question is, because how likely do you think it is that we're going to get off the Fed? That was my main thing, but you answered that, and we talked about Ron Paul a bit, which, I think I do think central banking creates a lot of inherent problems, and then getting off the gold standard in itself was a big mistake that we did under the Nixon administration. So
agreed.
Hopefully we do go back where we're somewhat still backed by gold, which I'm glad that you had mentioned that look, even if we do go back to a gold backing, there's no way we'll be able to do it fully. We'd have to do it in a partial sense, which I didn't know that. What percentage are we talking? I mean, not to get too much in the weeds, how much do you think we'd be able to, like, so let's say tomorrow Trump said, you know what, we're going to go back to a gold-backed U.S. dollar. What percentage do you think we'd be able to do at this point?
Based on all the currency out there, the reports that I've seen, we could maybe back between 5 and 15%. That would be the maximum we'd be able to do.
So very
because
low.
there's so much money that's been printed out there. Like
Right.
we just don't have enough to back it. We can't back it like we did, 200 years ago, where we just had enough currency going around. There's so much money. There's so much been created. There's so many dollars out there. So I think it'd be, but you know what? 5 to 15% would be enough. It really would be enough in today's world. To know that the government would have to rein things in a little bit, wouldn't have, the $1 trillion every 100 days, that would get pulled back because they just wouldn't be able to print, because they could just say, listen, we have to have 10% in reserve. And if we go beyond that, we can't. And we're just going to say no. And that's the only thing that will restrict the governments. Mm-hmm. That's why this whole idea of tariffs has never been done before. No president wants to do it because it's not popular. And if you're a lifetime politician, you want to do things that are going to continue to get you reelected.
Yeah.
Tariffs is not a popular way to go because there's a lot of people that it's going to cost them more money. It's going to put them, and you're really going to have to look at people and you're going to have to make some cuts.
Yeah.
And that's the big issue. So I think even 10% would be enough. God, if we could go 20, 30%, it'd be great. But we'd have to pull a lot of money out of circulation. So I think even a 10% backing would give us a lot of strength. And what it would do is it'd make our currency stronger, and it would make the world look at us again as a superpower. And then the other thing it would do is it'd get our money back into central banks, because what's happening right now is that central banks are divesting from the dollar. They don't want the dollar anymore. We're at 57% in central banks. We used to be at 70%. So if we could go back and have it backed a little bit by gold, central banks again would go, you know what, this is a good currency. We want it. This whole thing, what's going on with BRICS would go away. It would really put us in the driver's seat again. And it would really help like real people, Main Street people, because then their cost of their goods wouldn't go up so much. They could be able to save money. They'd put money in a bank and they could save. Probably interest rates and savings would go up. I mean, there'd be a lot of like ripple effects that would be positive to having even a 10% backing with gold. So will it happen? I don't know, but I think it would be great for everybody.
Okay.
And it would definitely be great for the gold price. I can tell you that.
All right.
Hopefully.
No, it's always great and informative talking with you, because obviously this is something we've talked about for years. Hey, you need to get into precious metals, and the fact that we kind of have you as a expert, we can ask you these questions is fantastic. And I think that precious metals is something that the younger audience especially needs to pay attention to.
Yes.
Look, I'm not telling you guys not to buy your Ethereum and your Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, precious metals, if we get into a world war, some other crazy conflict, that's probably going to be the only thing that holds any real value. You can actually barter and trade with that. Hell, probably even more than the US dollar if it really gets that bad.
Also, it's stable and not volatile as well. So
Yeah.
you can
So
trust it.
precious metals is always a great asset class to talk about. But Collin, thank you so much for answering our questions, man. And it's always great having you, especially now post election season and seeing what's up coming up next.
And Collin, where can they find you? And where can they buy gold and silver if they need
Yeah,
it?
Noble Gold Investments. Obviously, you want to mention that you heard about us on the Fresh and Fit podcast, or you can just call 877-646-5347. We do have a promotion going on right now where you can get, if you qualify, you get 10 ounces of silver for free. So any qualified IRA, you get 10 ounces of silver for free. So if anybody's looking to do something, get started, call in, mention the podcast, and you're going to talk to a live person. This isn't going to be automated. You're not going to talk to a bot. You're not going to talk to somebody overseas. You're going to talk to a real person in the US that owns this stuff, and they're going to teach you about it. And listen, if you like it, great. If you don't, it's okay. But I think if you haven't done it, you have some cash, you have an old IRA or old 401k, it might be a good time to look at some different options. So give us a call, and I guarantee you're going to enjoy the experience at Noble Gold Investments.
No, guys, I mean, look, I put my money where my mouth is. I control a couple 100 ounces of silver myself, right? Keep it in a safe. It's an asset class you need to have.
Yeah.
This is kind of it's a non-negotiable in my opinion. If you want to be a savvy, diversified investor, and you want to be, be in some volatile markets, but also have some level of safety, precious metals is where it goes, man. So and you can, like
It's
Collin was saying,
tangible. It's yours.
you can take it wherever.
Yeah.
Literally, you can, because here's the thing, even though cryptocurrency is awesome, guys, keep in mind, less than 10% of the world population even uses it, but everyone uses precious metals, and they've done that since the beginning of human history of having a bartering system of some kind.
And this is why if you can diversify your income, you got crypto, gold and silver, you can't lose. So
Yep.
there you go.
So, and I've had these ounces before I even met Collin because I knew how important it was. Now I'm even going to get more. So, guys, get yourself some silver. If you don't got the money to get into gold, no problem. But you can absolutely get in with silver, man. I mean, it's what, $31 right now. So
exactly.
Get in, guys. At least buy some silver, if anything. You need to have something there that, God forbid, something happens, you can run to a pawn shop and pawn it right away and get some quick cash.
And the best point is, he mentioned, is in fridges, solar panels, and Elon Musk is at the helm
and
of
you get 10 ounces for free.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy with these guys, with the special that they're running, guys. So there's literally no risk to you, man.
You can't
get
lose.
in, guys.
All right, man. Good
Thank
talk,
you,
brother.
guys.
Thank you, Collin. It's always great talking with you, brother.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.
Peace.
Peace.